After studying this module, you shall be able to learn about the structure of cell membranes, know about the types of cell membrane, that is prokaryotic plasma membrane and eukaryotic plasma membrane. Know about the various aspects of cell membrane, that is its function, types of proteins, other components present in it, etc. Analyze the importance of cell membrane in normal functioning of plant and animal cells.
Introduction. A cell is the basic unit of life, and all organisms are made up of one or many cells. One of the things that all cells have in common is a cell membrane. It is a barrier that separates a cell from its surrounding environment. This outer boundary of the cell is also called the plasma membrane. It is composed of 4 different types of molecules: phospholipids, cholesterol, proteins, carbohydrates. The fluid mosaic model describes the structure of a cell membrane. According to this model, the cell membrane, rather than solid, is flexible and has a consistency similar to vegetable oil. Therefore, all the molecules are floating in a fluid medium, and they are all capable of moving sideways within the cell membrane. Mosaic refers to something that contains many different parts. The plasma membrane is a mosaic of phospholipids, cholesterol molecules, proteins and carbohydrates.
Plasma membrane. The biological membrane is present in both eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. It is also called as cell membrane as it works as a barrier between the inner and the outer surface of a cell. In animal cells, this plasma membrane is present in the outermost layer of the cell, and in the plant cell, it is present just beneath the cell wall. The figure shows the cell membrane structure. Structure of cell membrane. It is composed of 2 layers of phospholipids and embedded with proteins. It is a thin semi-permeable membrane layer which surrounds the cytoplasm and other constituent of the cell. This figure shows the structure of plasma membrane with its component in detail. Plasma membrane structure can be understood from the points. It is the boundary which separates the living cell from their non-living surroundings. It is a phospholipids bilayer. Plasma membrane is an amphipathic which contains both hydrophilic heads and the hydrophobic tails. It is a fluid mosaic of lipids, proteins and carbohydrates. It is a lipid bilayer which contains 2 layers of phospholipids. Phosphate head is polar, that is water loving. Fatty acids tails non-polar, water fearing, and the proteins embedded in membrane. The plasma membrane is a phospholipid bilayer in which protein molecules are either partially or wholly embedded. The phospholipid bilayer has a fluid consistency comparable to that of light oil. The proteins are scattered throughout the membrane. Therefore, they form a mosaic pattern. This description of the plasma membrane is called the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane structure. The phospholipids spontaneously arrange themselves into a bilayer. The hydrophilic, that is water loving polar head of the phospholipid molecule face the outside and inside of the cell where water is found, and the hydrophobic, that is the water fearing non-polar tails face each other. In addition to phospholipids, there are 2 other types of lipids in the plasma membrane. Glycolipids have a structure similar to phospholipids except that the hydrophilic head is a variety of sugars joined to form a straight or branching off carbohydrate chain. Cholesterol is a lipid that is found in animal plasma membrane. Related steroids are found in the plasma membrane of plants. Cholesterol reduces the permeability of the membrane to most biological molecules. Types of cell membrane. There are 2 types of plasma membrane: prokaryotic plasma membrane and eukaryotic plasma membrane. First, let us see what is prokaryotic plasma membrane. The prokaryotic plasma membrane are composed of phospholipids bilayer with embedded proteins. In the middle of the layer, the fatty acids of the phospholipids are found, which is called as hydrophobic region. Prokaryotic cells can have multiple plasma membranes. In prokaryotic organisms, plasma membranes are responsible for controlling the entry and exit of the cell. Eukaryotic plasma membrane. It is a phospholipids bilayer containing protein and carbohydrate attached to the protein and steroids. It is a fluid phospholipids bilayer embedded with protein and glycoprotein. The phospholipids bilayer is arranged in such a manner that they form the center of the membrane. They also contain sterols, which makes the membrane less permeable and helps to stabilize the membrane and add the rigidity to membrane. Characteristic of cell membrane. The first one, plasma membrane or cell membrane is made up of two layers of phospholipid. Second, plasma membrane has many proteins embedded in it. Third, the plasma membrane regulates the entry and exit of the cell. Many molecules cross the cell membrane by diffusion and osmosis. The fundamental structure of the membrane is phospholipid bilayer and it forms a stable barrier between two aqueous compartments. The last but not the least, the protein present in the plasma membrane act as pumps, channels, receptor, enzymes or structural components. There are many functions of cell membrane known to us, like it separates the content of the cell from its outside environment and it regulates what enters and exits the cell. Plasma membrane plays a vital role in protecting the integrity of the interior of the cell by allowing only selected substances into the cell and keeping other substances out. It also serves as a base of attachment for the cytoskeleton in some organisms and the cell wall in others. Thus, the cell membrane supports the cell and helps in maintaining the shape of the cell. The cell membrane is primarily composed of proteins and lipids. While lipids helps to give membranes their flexibility and proteins monitor and maintains the cell's chemical climate and exist in the transfer of molecules across the membrane. The lipid bilayer is semi-permeable, which allows only selected molecules to diffuse across the membrane. Components of cell membrane. The main components of plasma membrane include proteins like glycoproteins, which are used for cell recognition and act as receptors and antigens. Proteins like glycolipids are attached to phospholipids along with the sugar chains. Lipids with the short chain of carbohydrates are attached on the extracellular side of the membrane. Phospholipid bilayer, which are made up of phosphates and lipids. They create a partially permeable membrane which allows only certain substances to diffuse through the membrane. Cholesterol. It maintains the fluidity of the cell membrane structure. This shows a structure where components of plasma membrane has been mentioned. Components of plasma membrane ensure cytoplasm is inside the cell membrane and cholesterol, peripheral protein, transmembrane protein, carbohydrates, glycolipids are all shown in the components of plasma membrane. Proteins in cell membrane. In cell membrane, a protein helps in providing the support and shape to the cell. There are three types of proteins in the cell membrane, which includes cell membrane receptor protein. It helps in communication of a cell with their external environment with the help of hormones, neurotransmitters and other signaling molecules. Transport protein. It helps in transporting molecules across cell membranes through facilitated diffusion, for example, globular proteins. The third protein, that is glycoprotein, which helps in cell-to-cell communication and molecules transport across the membrane. The protein in a membrane may be peripheral protein or integrate protein. Peripheral protein occur either on the outside or the inside surface of the membrane. Some of these are anchored to the membrane by covalent bonding. Still others are held in place by non-covalent interaction that can be disrupted by gentle shaking or by the change in the pH. Integral protein are found within the membrane and have hydrophilic region embedded within the membrane and the hydrophilic region that protects from both the surface of the bilayer. Many integral proteins are glycoprotein, which have an attached carbohydrate chain. As with glycolipids, the carbohydrate chains of sugar projects externally. Therefore, it can be said that the plasma membrane is sugar coated. The plasma membrane is asymmetrical. The two halves are not identical. The carbohydrate chains of the glycolipids and proteins occur only on the outside surface, and the cytoskeletal filaments attach to protein only on the inside surface. Summary: cell membrane works as a barrier between the inner and outer surface of a cell. In animal cells, the plasma membrane is present in the outermost layer of the cell, and in plant cell, it is present just beneath the cell wall. It is composed of two layers of phospholipids and embedded with proteins. It is a thin semi-permeable membrane layer which surrounds the cytoplasm and other constituent of the cell. It contains two layers of phospholipids. Phosphate head is polar, that is water loving, fatty acids tail non-polar, that is water fearing, and the protein embedded in membrane. There are two types of plasma membrane, prokaryotic plasma membrane and eukaryotic plasma membrane. Plasma membrane plays a vital role in protecting the integrity of the interior of the cell by allowing only selected substances into the cell and keeping other substances out. In cell membrane, a protein helps in providing the support and shape to the cell. There are different types of proteins in the cell membrane, which includes cell membrane receptor proteins, transport proteins and glycoprotein.